So before we jump into the meat of the video talking about Final Fantasy 16, its apparently poor sales, where this data is apparently coming from, and why the Sony fandom have, completely gone against Square Enix, mainly due to the exclusivity, I wanted to start off with this one right here because this one is a small indie company and they need all the help they can get in terms of exposure, so I'm hoping this will get them some of that. I'll have a link to this tweet in the description below. If this post gets 2026 retweets, we will port our story-driven boomer JRPG Quartet to Xbox in 2026. All you have to do to support this is basically help them get exposure, and by doing that, all you need to do is retweet it. As of current standing, they're at roughly about just under 600 as of recording, so if every one of you or most of you decide to chip in, they can hit that target in no time. Alright, so that's this one over here. There's me doing my bit, not only retweeting it, but quote tweeting it as well, trying to get them as much exposure as I can. But let's get to the meat of the crux of the video, and that is of course this one over here. And as you can see here, Lacrix, which is where this information came from, by the way, these are estimates. 700 reviews on Xbox compared to 37,500 reviews on PlayStation, and PlayStation has had this game for what, 2 years now, 2.5 years, and they're comparing 3 days worth of reviews at 700 to 2.5 years worth of reviews. And then you've got Steam, which has had the game for roughly a year at 23,263. Now this has to be some of the worst journalistic, I mean, I've seen, all sorts of publications, influencers talking about this. You've still got Nibs trying to, defend this, even though he knows he is pretty much wrong on this one. And as you can see at the bottom, no, I was using it as a reference point. How can you use reviews as a reference point? It's crazy. There's also talks about how Nibs is finding this game at number 483. Now, when I checked this yesterday myself, it was at 380, which is still low, by the way. The game definitely did lower than expected. I expected this game to do a lot more considering how many people wanted it. But at the same time, this was shadow dropped. There was no fanfare, there was no marketing, no advertising. I didn't even see a splash screen on the Xbox to say, hey, this game has landed, at least to inform people that this has landed. But I'm pretty sure most people don't even know that this game has landed on the Xbox because it was just a shadow drop. It just appeared out of nowhere. But aside from that, this data that they're using is totally inconclusive. Now, when I checked Xbox today about when it came to most played, it went from 380 to 346. So you can see that it's going up. Now, obviously, I expected it to at least be in the top 50 with a shadow drop because it's a prestigious brand with Final Fantasy. But the actual 22,000 sold is complete hoax. And the fact that this dude is using 700 reviews as a reference point or using these estimates to calculate. I've never reviewed a game on PlayStation, on Xbox or Switch, I think maybe once or twice on Steam in all my life. And I'm sure there are many other people like that out there where you just don't do it. Now on Steam, it kind of makes sense. You've got your keyboard, you've got your mouse. It's a lot easier. Consoles are different. Now 37,000, in 2.5 years, it's still a lot of reviews where people are just going and typing 5-star and that's it. Or 4-star or 3-star. But really the crux of all of this isn't that the game hasn't sold well on Xbox. It's the fact that these people are just seriously upset that Square Enix has chosen to release this game on Xbox. And they've also chosen to release Final Fantasy VII Remake by the end of this year on Xbox, and we'll be getting Rebirth not long after on Xbox as well. Alongside that, whether the third game releases day and date, which will really be a true test to see how these games perform, but it's to be expected that the sequels of these Final Fantasy VII games are going to do worse and worse as they go on, because if you've not played the first one, you're not going to buy the second one. And if you've not played the first two, you're not going to buy the third. So the market is at its biggest when it comes to the first game, and then it kind of dwindles and dwindles. That just makes sense. That's common sense. Of course, that's not what's happening here. What's happening here is PlayStation fans have actually lost them. You know, they are so angry at the fact that these games are coming out on Xbox. This is how much of a gatekeeping, you know, bunch of people these are. They are so upset that this game is not being gatekept and kept exclusive to Xbox to PlayStation, that they have to now, and though they deny it, they are celebrating at the, you know, the behest of a studio who's made their game for another platform and it's not doing as well as they hoped. I mean, at the end of the day, we don't know how many copies have sold. All we can go by is, you know, most played and top paid, which is something Microsoft has on their Microsoft website. That's all the information that really we can go by. There's no statistical information because Microsoft doesn't provide that information publicly. So any information that's coming out is just a guesstimate, it's fake, and it's not accurate. But we all know this, but they're still running around with that notion. Now, there was a debate going earlier on that, you know, it's a shame that PlayStation fans are glorifying and celebrating a game failing, and they're denying this, but the actual fact is that is exactly what they are doing. 100%, without a shadow of doubt. They can deny it all they want to sugarcoat it or to make themselves feel better, but the reality is that is exactly what they are doing. This game was always going to be, you know, it was always going to be a tough sell. It's coming out 2 years later. Most people would have played it on PlayStation, and then they would have played, if they didn't play it on PlayStation, they'd have played it on PC, because that came after. So they had 2 opportunities to play it before it landed on Xbox, and even then it got announced on the Switch before it even got announced on the Xbox. So at that point, you're looking at 2 platforms that had the game 2.5 years before it came to the actual console. A hype window is very important for a game. Shadow dropping games, Microsoft needs to stop doing this. Oblivion dropped and it did well, but nowhere near as well as it could have done if it wasn't shadow dropped. I get shadow drops are cool and they're interesting, but they absolutely kill momentum. They destroy momentum, and it's just not good for the game. But in this situation, there was no marketing, there was no real announcement. The only announcement came from the actual showcase, and that was it. How Square Enix actually agreed to this, I don't know, but you don't just shadow drop a massive game like Final Fantasy and then expect things to be okay, especially when it's landing 2.5 years later. Xbox gamers aren't really the same as PlayStation gamers. They will pay early access for a game that's been out for 3-4 years. Yeah, I know. And like the PlayStation, business update said, we're perfectly okay with raising the prices because they will pay for it. We're okay with raising PlayStation Plus without adding any value because they will pay for it. We're okay with continually doing remasters because they will pay for it. This is what they said. This is literally what they said in the business update. They are okay with increasing prices because they will pay for it. Whereas, no, on the Xbox side, no. If you treat people unfairly, they are going to react inadvertently. Now, this is sidetracked a bit, but it kind of encapsulates the whole point. This number, 22,000, it's coming from estimates. It's not even coming from the, Xbox Achievements website, which is way more accurate than looking at reviews, right? I mean, the Xbox Achievements requires everyone to actually register for it in order to actually be an accurate service. It can only report back who's actually registered on that website. So even that is inaccurate, but people are using it as a way of gospel truth. But what's the most embarrassing thing out of all of this isn't the fact that the Nibs and the Puertorox and everyone else is talking about 22K. No, it's the actual publications that ran with the story without fact checking where they got the information. Recently, I made a boo-boo. myself. You know, I held my hands up, I admitted I was wrong, and I took my tweet down. Mind's Eye had 97 out of 100. 100% from PlayStation Magazine. Turns out it was photoshopped. You know, I didn't realize, it was one of the few times I didn't fact check. Put my hands up. But I'm not a paid professional. These people are paid professionals. I expect the PlayStation fans to turn around and mock this and make fun of it, and actually make fun of a studio that supported them for generations. But one mistake, and that's it. They're out of favor. That is the way of PlayStation. But I don't expect it from the publications. And this Lacrix guy, who's getting their estimates from reviews, and apparently that's a reference point. Nah, it doesn't work that way. He has no idea, or she, depending on what gender they are, they have no idea how many copies are actually sold. It could be 100,000, it could be 500,000. They have no idea. The only people that actually know is Microsoft and Square Enix. And clearly they're not announcing it, they're not singing it and parading it, so it's clearly not sold 1 million copies. But at the end of the day, this is fake news. And the reality is, it's a shame that we are seeing fans from PlayStation who are so hurt that Square Enix is releasing games, Final Fantasy games in particular, on Xbox, that they are now celebrating the game not doing well. That is pretty pathetic, no matter how you want to look at it. I don't know, folks. Let me know what you think in the comment section below. Let's have that discussion. I'm going to be live later today, and we're going to be talking about Xbox, the rumors especially, and I'll see you then. Hopefully I'll catch you tonight, and we can have more of those discussions and even more of these. I expect there's going to be a few unscrupulous people coming in, but we'll deal with those as it goes. But folks, that's the video. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Stay safe and remain legend.